The city of New York is by far the greatest of all. New York City culture is one of relentless ambition, filled with people whose drive knows no limits, and these are their stories. This is New York City Pulse.
Hello, New York, and welcome to episode number 7 of New York City Pulse. I'm Zane, and today my special guest is Jeanie Engelbach. She's a lifestyle curator and professional organizer who helps people overwhelmed by clutter and disorganization. Dubbed the Chaos Conqueror by Town and Country magazine, Jeanie and her company have been awarded the Best in House designation for every year from 2014 until 2020, and her work is consistently featured in industry-leading publications like HGTV, Apartment Therapy, Forbes, New York Magazine, and many more, as she strives to share her strategies on how we can all live better organized. Jeanie, thanks for coming on the show today.
Oh, my pleasure. And you should become my publicist.
Maybe. We'll see if we go down that road. But, just to jump in, a few months ago we were talking and you mentioned that even from a very young age, you were always the most organized person in the family and in your house. So I would love it if you could take us back to Pennsylvania and sort of give us a bit of your backstory from, those days when you were the most organized at home until when you came to New York.
Well, it's true. I have been organized my entire life, which is, I guess, the opposite of being an Aries. However, I, you know, I've always been, I've always been prompted to put everything in its proper place. I think, I grew up with a housekeeper who was more like a surrogate mother to us. And I think when I was like probably 4 or 5, I had like all my games out and I was playing, and Frida, who was such a huge influence. And I actually laughed because my sister and I were just speaking about how everything I've learned that is like the foundation of my business came from either my father, who is like hyper about organization and being clean and doing things the right way, and Frida. Like I really gained all my knowledge from those two people at a very early age. And so once Frida was like, instead of putting all your things out and then having to put them all away at the same time, you should just play with something, put it away, and then pick up the next thing. And I think I gave her a sassy answer about like, oh, I like to do it the other way. And from that day on, like I just was very cognizant and aware of like being disciplined about putting things away. And it just led to a path of always being never in a hurry, never like overwhelmed by things. Like everything in my world has its home, it has its place. And I try and do that for my clients. But I also was very lucky. I had my own bedroom, I had my own walk-in closet, and I used to put everything away. Like I went to a school where you wore a uniform. So the first bar of the clothes rod was like my uniform kilts and skirts. And then the second rod was party frocks. And then I had shelves, and every game piece was in its box. Everything was ticked up. It was all like very aesthetically pleasing. Whenever I would have a friend over to play, I always merchandise things, not knowing it was merchandising, but I always had things out like it was a retail experience in my room. And friends would come, they'd pick something off the shelf, they'd look at it, put it back down, and I was right behind them, like putting it exactly where it was. And it wasn't so much like an OCD type of thing. It was just that I knew the way I wanted things to look. And I didn't mind people trying, touching things. I just knew that I wanted it to look this way. And then I started replicating that in my friends' homes. My friends' parents would actually call for play dates and ask me to come over, and they'd like just throw me into the bedroom and be like, well, do you mind just cleaning out her closet? And I was like, this is the best play date ever, sure. So that kind of like need to order people and kind of streamline other people's lives has been the trajectory of my entire career. Before I became a professional organizer, I was an office manager, I was executive assistant. I did things that streamlined other people's lives because I can see the chaos all above them, and I just want to make things easier for them. So I've learned how to anticipate what people need before they even know that they need it. So it's just really been it's been very seamless. And it's funny because I struggled and I fought against it because I didn't think that was a career. Being organized wasn't a career, and it certainly wasn't something to aspire to. It was just
A way of life.
who I am. Exactly. And fortunately, I was able to parlay it into a career because the career path I was on was stagnant, and I wasn't because I was so good at organizing other people's lives, I could never continue. I worked in the music industry actually, and I was such a viable and important like assistant or executive assistant or coordinator that I just couldn't move on because no one wanted to let me go. So I forged a new path in doing organization. And it started off with photos actually. I did photo organization. I made photo albums, scrapbooks, clean up people's photographic lives. And that was Photo Genie is my first business. And then people would ask, oh, I just wish I could do this in my home office. Or I'm like, oh, I can do that.
Well, hold on. First, how did Photo Genie start? Like, did somebody see your album, which was really organized, and ask, hey, can you do that for me too?
No. So Photo Genie, I was always the photographer of the friends. I was like the yearbook photographer in high school. I always had a camera. I was always taking photos. And back then, I am much older than you. I've been legal for a very long time. We took cameras out with film in them and had to get them developed.
What's film?
Film is, well, that's for a different call.
I'm kidding.
I know you are. You're very savvy and smart, even way beyond your years.
Thank you.
So when my friends started getting married, I was always in the bridal party, but I always had a camera. So back then, you had a wedding photographer who took photos of the day of. There wasn't any of the parties leading up, the day after. That wasn't the type of photography that was done for these types of events. So I would take all these photos, and then I'd be left with all these photos of other people's family members. So I would create these very elaborate scrapbooks as gifts so Taty's just made his presence here.
Tater tot.
So I would make these very elaborate scrapbooks with the cocktail napkins from the party and then all the different elements of the wedding and the wedding parties leading up to it. And I would give them as gifts. So I was doing that. It's just a nice way to, I'm so sorry about Tater Tot. He's not worked in 6 weeks. Tater, come here, babe. Anyway, it's going to get louder, I'm sure of it. Anyway, so I was working at an internet music company during the dot-com boom days. And my boss, who's just a year older than me, he and I ended up walking home and his plans had fallen through and he was like, oh, I don't know what to do with myself tonight. I'm like, oh, why don't you organize your photographs? Sorry, Zane, do you want me to kind of grab Taty?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Sorry for that.
All good.
I am super sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm not even exact. And if I put him in the bedroom and shut the door, he will continue to bark because he likes to be where the action is. But I've taught a couple of workshops and he's been dead silent during them. So I apologize.
All good.
But anyway, so the point is I was walking home with my boss. I told him to organize his photos. He was like, that sounds like a great activity for you to do. And then 6 months later, he had sold the company. I got laid off. I called him. I'm like, hey, do you want to do that photo project? Because I had nothing to do with my time. And he, now Tater's drinking very loudly. So we started, I just took all the photos that he had because back then, again, people didn't have digital cameras. They only printed their images. So he had this big farm table and we were putting all the photos out on the table. And I just looked at him. I'm like, this is a business. And he's an entrepreneur. And he was like, it is a business. And so Photo Genie was born on his table. So, and that was in 2000.
That was in 2000. And then, so at what point did Photo Genie transition into Apartment Genie?
Well, Apartment Genie branched out of Photo Genie. Photo Genie still exists for a very particular population. Apartment Genie, I have been working with clients, and as I said earlier, they would, kind of lament about how their office was disorganized and things like that. And Photo Genie has always been, I'm not embarrassed to say, a luxury service. And so these people were, they had staff. They, a lot of the women that I worked with didn't actually have a job. They did other kinds of activities, raised their children, did a lot of volunteer work. And, so I started doing helping them organize. And then the market fell out. And whereas my clients weren't really losing money, they weren't spending it either on luxury services. So I had to pivot a bit. And I decided that I love organizing. I love doing restyling. And and people need the service. And it wasn't that I wanted to compete with being an interior designer. I was really interested in going in, making a more efficient use of the space, more effective use of what they already had in a very short time period. So I wasn't going to paint your walls, and I wasn't going to hire a painter to do it, but we could talk about what color I thought the walls should be. And so Apartment Genie was really born out of my clients not needing photo work as much as they had been, going and pivoting to a new market that wasn't going to hire an interior designer or an organizer per se, but they needed something to help them. Like they knew what they liked and they were able to buy those things. They just couldn't make it look cohesive. And so Apartment Genie was really supposed to be a one-day service. I went in and made a big change, a big impact in a short period of time. Then clients, as Apartment Genie continued to grow, people started asking more and more for my input. My background beyond working in the music industry is that I worked at Bergdorf Goodman in interior display for a very long time. I worked at ABC Carpet Home as the visual, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Visual manager. So like people, like I have a certain eye, but I didn't have proper training for those things. I just always knew how I like things to look a certain way and what makes sense. And I apply that same way as when I'm making a scrapbook for a client as I am for decorating and designing their living room. So Apartment Genie started to grow. And, what was interesting is that our clients from Photo Genie, they would have, adult children that would hire me for Apartment Genie. And then those original clients would see what I did in their kids' homes and then bring me back into their homes to start helping them. And it's just like a really nice full circle. So I generally will work with the whole family. I do photos with the parents, I do Apartment Genie with the kids, and sometimes I creep back into the parents' home, do some Apartment Genie work. I've been incredibly lucky for the clients that I've had for the entire expanse of my career so far. They've been very generous, and for a very long time it was just word of mouth business. Now I do different types of marketing, I do advertising on Houzz, but my clients really were the reasons that I could sustain a business and go through like 2008 and now currently with what's happening in 2020.
And it's also great to have two businesses that have a bunch of overlap. That way you can, service clients with both businesses and keep getting referral business that way. So, you mentioned everything that's going on now in 2020. How is your industry evolving with what's going on? Because, you and I both need to physically be in somebody else's apartment or house to do our job. And so, like on the real estate side, we're seeing, virtual tours, 3D floor plans. And so we're seeing these new changes come up at a much faster rate than we would see otherwise. So in your space, what sort of changes are you seeing?
Well, it's interesting. I had for a long time tried to wrap my head around what could I create that would be comparable to the experience of hiring me and having me work in your home, but yet gave a value. But also, there's a certain DIY contingent that I could market to. But, I wanted to be able to create some sort of program, some evergreen program for times like this that would, eventually be able to sell on its own. And, the pause that we've had has forced me to sit down and do that. And in some ways it's a silver lining, because I would never have created the time and the space to really focus on doing an online program. But I started doing a workshop for helping people do closet organization and getting, doing because right now this is my busy season. I would normally be in people's homes, changing out their seasonal clothing, helping them like release things, resell, give away, donate. I can't go into anybody's home right now. So I started doing a workshop to teach people the exact process and method in which that the Apartment Genie team does, and go in, and it's a fraction of the cost. And I am going to duplicate that in other ways. And I've noticed there are a couple of like organizers with tremendous followings on social media that I follow, and we are all doing the exact same thing. People that have over 100,000 followers are offering the same kind of courses that I'm offering. And, I started going on TikTok, which I'll be honest, a year ago, I was like, this is not for me. And I watched a Gary Vee video.
Isn't it mostly for like music videos though? I mean, because people in the real estate space are saying to get into it also, but I'm kind of not sold yet.
Well, I saw a year ago, I watched like hours of TikTok and I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, I mean, I understand, but I'm like, this is clear. Like the same way I never went on Snapchat because I'm like, that's for the kids. Like the kids can have Snapchat. I don't need to be creeping on my friends' kids' pages there. But so I didn't do Snapchat, although I was a little envious of those filters. But I went on TikTok. So I went on a year ago. I was like, no, this is ridiculous. It's a lot of people they weren't even so much dancing and singing. It was just people doing stupid stuff. So I went off it. Then I watched another Gary Vee video recently. And he was telling someone that they got to get on TikTok. And she was like, trying to build up her therapy practice. And she was reaching out to teens or whatever. So I thought, let me go back on. And I decided that I would make an organization one. And I love it because it forces me to do things in 67 increments and like be able to so I did a whole gene folding thing on TikTok. Then later I put it on to Instagram. But then I saw this one person that has a huge following do the exact same gene thing. And I'm not saying that she saw my stuff. I'm just saying like we're all thinking in the same ways. How to help our clients, how to help the broader audience, giving as much as we can. And like with respect to what I do, it's very personalized. I mean, it is not a one size fits all because I really need to understand who I'm working with because I want to be able to give them the best experience, but also the tools that they need to be able to duplicate this. My goal isn't to keep going back into the same person's home to organize. It's to give them the skills that I have that I can teach them and let them do it. Because with organization, it is a domino effect. And the minute you start doing one area, you then start seeing all the other areas.
Yeah, so that's some good feedback. So basically with your industry, you're seeing a shift to things more virtual, courses offered online, an increased stress on social media, putting content out there, raising that brand awareness. And then maybe, these people who subscribe to the online courses will eventually become in-person clients as well. So it's interesting to see that perspective. And I had another question that I totally forgot.
Well, I want to say one thing though, is that, and I think this is universal for some people that work in real estate, but like I had big, ambitious financial goals for 2020. And March was a killer month until the 12th. I got new clients that I hadn't worked with. I was doing much bigger scale design projects. It was a huge month. I had a lot of Photo Genie clients coming in, and then everything stopped. And so, I had to reassess, like everybody else is, what are my financial goals for the year? Because doing what I do in person, isn't the same as doing it digitally online. And I'm not going to be able to sustain the same kind of financial goals I had set based on my online activity. So it's also thinking of how else to reach the clients and how can I make the experience. It's not about me. It's about how can I support them in any way, shape, and form. And so, it's a time for me to go back to considering writing a book and I wrote a book. I stopped writing it because it was boring me. So I thought, well, if it's boring me, it's probably going to bore the reader. So, it's just, it's being creative and being able to pivot very quickly. And I think that people that you and I, we can't lag. We've got to pivot. There's no thinking about it. You just have to jump into action.
Right. And jump into action quickly. Otherwise we'll be left behind on the other side of this when the quarantine's over. But what would you say are the top 3 pain points that you solve for the people that you work with?
Top 3 pain points. Very good. I think that most people's wake up in the morning problem isn't that, oh, I have a disorganized closet. It's that I don't know what to wear. I have nothing to wear. I open up a closet and it's bursting with clothing, but there's nothing to wear. And teaching them how to shed things. It's okay to let go of things, even if you've spent a lot of money on them or there was a gift. It's teaching people the lesson of letting things go, and I have a phrase: when in doubt, throw it out. But letting things, to be able to take control, your clutter doesn't control you. You control your clutter.
Right.
And giving them that power. I think that some people just get to a point where they feel powerless to it, and telling them that they are in fact in control of their surroundings. But teaching them also methods based on what works for them. As I said before, one size doesn't fit all. So really being able to give them personal guidance and structure, and knowing how they work and what's going to work for them, and being able to have that dialogue with them too. And, I think also more on the interior stylist side is just being able to, people just aren't feeling comfortable in their homes. And it isn't about buying more things. It's never really about buying more stuff. It's about I think what I help people is with their confidence and their belief in themselves, and, really getting to for them to bask in in their happiness, and to create that for them so that they can really enjoy. Because, I don't want to say every case is different. There are definite themes in people, and some people have us coming to help them clean out their closets, and some people it's a very surface thing. They just don't want to do it themselves. But I do think that what we're doing is helping people fall back in love with their homes.
By restoring order, making sure that everything flows seamlessly and they don't feel overwhelmed by extra things that they have, throwing out the things that they don't need, or maybe giving it away or donating it. When in doubt, throw it out. I love that.
Thank you.
Do you have sort of a criteria that you share with people? Because for me, I tell myself, okay, if I haven't used it in 6 months, toss it. Do you have something like that, or is that?
Well, so when in doubt, throw it out is a little bit like that, because that's that thing where you pick up something and you hesitate. And that moment of hesitation is, no, it's time to let it go.
Also, it's the moment of hesitation.
That's when it's in doubt. So you put this shirt. Let's use my shirt, for example. I bought the shirt in Montana. It's got a whole story behind it. It's a snap. It's cute. However, I am not fitting into it really nicely right now, because I've had more food in my apartment in my entire adult life, and I continue to eat it. And I don't exercise anyway. But I put the shirt on. I don't feel 100% comfortable in it. And you know what's going to happen at the end of the day? I'm going to release it. I'm going to give it away. I'm going to donate it. And so when people pick up something, or they hesitate when they're Marie Kondo is does it spark joy for you? And it's the same kind of thing. If you shouldn't be surrounded by mediocrity. You should not be surrounded by things that you have, feelings about. You should love not everything is going to, a spatula, which is a necessity in the kitchen, isn't necessarily going to spark joy. I mean, maybe you like it because it's a colored spatula, but there are things that, if you are in that moment of looking at something and you have that the 2-second hesitation, that means it's no longer serving your needs. It's no longer bringing you any sense of pleasure or happiness. And then it also might bring negative feelings, having clothing that is gorgeous hanging in your closet that you spent a lot of money on but doesn't fit you, is going to make you feel badly. It's going to make you feel badly about the fact that you wasted money, that you don't fit into it. Maybe you bought it for a certain situation and that didn't come to be. Whatever it is, you need to let go of those things.
And this ties into what you were saying earlier about making people really love their homes. It's not just about making sure that everything is in the most efficient layout, but it's also making sure that we love everything that's in our home because it brings us joy. So it's kind of there are two sides to it. There's the actual organizing and making sure everything has its place, and making sure that everything that is in all the places brings people joy. So,
right. And it's also about being intentional about what you bring into your home, and knowing that, I'm a collector. I have a lot of collections. You can see the Pez behind me. I've got lunch boxes over there. I have soda bottles. I collect a lot of things. However, and people sometimes are manic shoppers. And you have to figure out, is this something that I want and I love and I need, or is this something that's going to temporarily make me feel better, or temporarily, and I think that being able to like really sit in that thought process is going to make people more aware of their surroundings, because we all have blind eyes to like what's in our homes. I think Zoom has changed it. Like for me, the Zoom meetings are making me insane. Whether it's Zoom and TikTok and like any sort of interview on television now, because I see everything. I see it all. And I'm like trying to straighten things up. And I'm like, didn't they notice they have a pile of laundry in the corner while they got on TV? Like, you know, like things like that. And I want to like reach out to like people and be like, let me help you. And actually my first like big online virtual consultations came from me watching videos or being on a webinar and then reaching out to that person, being like, you need help. Like that, I'm not listening to anything you said because there is chaos going on all behind you. And why would I trust you with my money if your whole office looks like a tornado?
You brought up collecting, which, you know, you do have the lunch boxes and everything, but you collect things and it still looks so neat. How are you able to pull that off?
Well, being highly organized is helpful, but also with collections in general, you want to curate them and treat them as almost like they're museum pieces or displays. You want to make sure that you don't mass it out. And if you do mass things out, like, so the Pez is behind me.
What does that mean, mass things out?
When you have so if you go to like a retail store and you see 4 outfits on a hanger, you know that they have more sizes in the back room, but they're just showing you, here's this style, here's what we have. We're more than happy to go to the back and get you the one that's right for you. So when you are going to another kind of store, which has every size and every style out, that's massing something out, putting it all out. So like I have plenty more Pez's than they're behind me. They're all stored in my lunchbox collection. So it's about not just like curating your collections, but making them so that they're neat, you know, also thinking about the angles, creating something that, putting a little space between them. I like to do a lot of displays and stuff on trays, so it feels like it's a contained space, so it's not all over the tabletop. The other thing about collections is to put more on the walls and on surface spaces. I try and get as much on my walls as possible, always thinking vertically.
Vertically. Oh yeah, so that's why you have 2 shelves. Are those 2 or 3 shelves that are like stacked?
Actually, so they are drawers that artist Steve Keen out of Brooklyn had painted these drawers. I then bought the drawers and put little shelves in them to do the Pez's, but there's 3 shelves behind me. I did all the, and that's the other thing, when you're working with like collections and displays, you know, like I don't have all my lunchbox collections out. I decided this time to do things in color gradation, the same way with the Pez. So like, yeah, this way I also pick and choose the ones that I want to see, that I love. And then you can swap things out. You can move them out. You can do things if they're seasonally or a collection that makes sense in that respect. But it's important to not put every single thing you have in a display. Think in terms of odd numbers. That's always a thing. Like when you're doing a little like thing, do odd numbers. But also you don't want to overwhelm. You want to create a little bit of like space. So because when there's too much stuff, now I know there's a lot hanging up on the walls behind me, but that's my only wall that I really have any artwork. I came from a much larger apartment with many more walls. And when I moved here, I had to get rid of like 2/3 of what I owned. So, but I also I have a lot of confidence in how I hang things, and I know that it's going to look good, and I'm okay with it. Like I like a lot of color and like patterns, but you can see behind me, like they're round.
The complete opposite of my wall. I have a black and white picture behind me.
But you know what? You're framed in the shot nicely, and the blue on the walls goes really nicely with the, like your background. Yes, is the dead opposite, because yours is very soothing. Mine's very busy and like, what's happening? I want to see what's going on there. But you don't see any laundry and you don't see any piles of things on the floor.
That's true. I don't get, I've seen some people go on interviews on national television, on like NBC or, you know, one of the major, you know, news outlets. And they're on national television with hanging laundry in the background, just wires dangling.
Craziness. Yes. And that's, you know, years ago, I had a boyfriend, and his best friend roommate was a little crazy. Like not like he was maybe on the spectrum, you would say. And he was so brilliant. So he didn't see that, like he just didn't belong on our plane. Like he just like, and I feel like a lot of times when we're seeing people that are especially now during the pandemic, that are like leaders, thought leaders, but like they just are so in their head, and so like none of this means anything. They don't even know that it's back there. So I give them a pass, but still, like, you know, it's funny, like when you look at things and like, oh, why did they put all those candles out like that? And what, like, I'm constantly, and so it's almost making me crazy to be able to have this much access into people's homes.
I bet. So now everybody's transitioning. Oh, are you there? So everyone's starting to work on their spring cleaning, right? And earlier you mentioned that sometimes if you work on a certain spot of the home, it'll inspire you to work on other parts of the home. Is there one location that you recommend people to start first with their spring cleaning? Do you have any recommended tips, any insight?
Well, if they're really doing spring cleaning, and I think that right now people have been in their homes for, you know, for us, like almost 2 months, they're starting to see things very differently. They're starting, and because we don't know what the future is going to look like in terms of going to work. Are most people going to do split hours? Is school going to be in session on some days and maybe not? Like, there's so much uncertainty, and people are spending all their time in their homes. So they're starting to look at it with a different sense of like, I no longer need this, but I need to implement some other kind of thing. When I go into someone's home pre-pandemic, generally it's whatever the pain point is. Now it's interesting because a lot of times people will come to me about one problem, and then like that's not what we focus on, because when I see things, I'm like, oh, well, let's start here. And they're like, oh, I never even realized that. Oh, this could be better. This could be more efficient, more effective. So I think that you have to think about what causes you problems. Do you loathe opening the door and walking in? Do you live in a shoes off household where like it's just no one takes their shoes to their bedrooms, or the boots are still with the flip flops? Like, so maybe it's working in the front area. Maybe it's creating a proper landing space. Maybe it's investing in a attractive shoe rack so that people, and like labeling who's got what row, so that everyone starts to learn how to put things away. A lot of times we'll start off, especially at this time of year, it's talking about your wardrobe. Now, we've all been in clothing. Most people are not wearing their like go to work attire from home, or at least maybe not on the bottom. So like, you know, and there hasn't been a real urgency to clean out our closets. However, the weather is changing, and people are going to now not want to spend 1 minute in time once we're allowed to leave. So I would say start with your closet. Like that's an easy way to start. Start in doing organizing your closet. If it's with the kids, maybe start looking at their toys and their games and start deciding, can we let go of some of this stuff? Can we donate things? Can we get rid of some of the stuff? And I do think that, you shouldn't just organize for your children. You should involve them in it, like so that they can make decisions, so they feel like they have some say in it. Like I was always, as I said earlier, super organized and neat. So like my mother never went in to clean out my room or anything like that. However, she did get rid of things that were in the mud room that I'm like, that's my favorite pair of shoes. And she was like, well, they're ugly. Like, I mean, I was like, but you should have asked me. Like, you should have asked. Like, I was a teenager at that point. Like, you just asked. Like, so I think that parents, a lot of times when I work in homes with families, I'm an advocate for every family member. So I think that it's important to figure out what bothers you the most. Are you trying to cook more? Then maybe it's time to organize the kitchen so it's more efficient, and and then you see what you're missing, and you also see like, we don't need 17 pans when 2 will work, or things like that. Or even looking at the expiration dates on your food. You want to start baking, well maybe you need to check the expiration dates on the flour and the other ingredients, things that we don't necessarily think of. So I think that it really should be your pain point, is what should trigger the organization. And then it will become a natural, like, oh, well, now that I've done the kitchen, I feel like maybe we should tackle the basement and get rid of, like, I had a woman on my workshop last time that thought she was going to do like all of her tanks and her athletic wear and stuff like that. And then when we started into the workshop, she realized, I'm going with all my party frocks and my formal dresses, and that wasn't a pain point for her, but she also wasn't going to tackle that unless someone was with her telling her this is where we're going to, the direction that we should go in. So I think it's important to not just jump right in. And also, this is a real issue for people. They think buying containers is going to make them organized, and that's not true. I never shop for a client until we've done the first set of editing and purging, and then we see what we really need. So like a lot of people will get all excited about the shopping portion of organization and rush out to the Container Store and buys all these things, and then they have all these ill-fitted boxes because we're not using them, because we let go of all those things, or that it doesn't work in their space. So I do think it's important to really consider what it is that is prompting you to get organized.
Okay, so that was fantastic. So start with, getting rid of the things that you don't need, that you don't use, that don't bring you any joy. And then that's when you start to figure out, okay, what's the best way to organize what's remaining?
Yes.
Gotcha. And that's even more important now that we're all spending all of this time at home. But I'm curious, like, how have you been spending the time so far? Like, we've been at home 2 months now. You mentioned that earlier. What are you doing? Like, I've been driving a lot. I don't know. I didn't drive much before this, but since mid-March, I've been going on a lot of drives, a lot of walks, and a lot of reading. But what about you?
I'll be honest, like, I don't know how I did it, like, when I actually went on job sites all day long, because I am constantly, like, so I'm creating a lot more content now. I'm doing videos. I'm doing, like, and a video isn't like, normally I wouldn't put on makeup if I was sitting alone in my home. Now I've got to like get dressed and I've got to think about what I want to say. And I just don't want, I feel like I'm nonstop. I'm building my new Apartment Genie website right now, because the current website is with Photo Genie and Party Genie, which we didn't talk about, but I'm also shutting Party Genie down. I'm trying to work on a lot of marketing. I've got a workshop coming up. So like, I'm also designing a lot of coursework, but it's nonstop. I feel like there was like in the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm great. I'm organized. I'm going to work on photos for clients. And then when PPP started coming out, all these opportunities to hopefully get some financial assistance, I became obsessed with that. And I felt like that I was chasing this money, like, and not doing any other things productive. And then it like swung back to, okay, let me get work done. So I really feel like I have been so busy, and like, again, it's an organization for me in a different way. It's like, I'm seeing all the cracks, and like, I could do better on LinkedIn. I could do better in here. I could like, so I go out once a week. I'm very fortunate. I live above a Target. I live across the street from a Trader Joe's. So I don't really have to go too far for necessities. I take my dog Tater Tot out on a walk to farmer's market on Saturdays now, because he loves it. And I feel like we get one walk out. But aside from that, I mean, I was having, like, I tried to read a book. I fell asleep in a page of it. Like, I mean, I really thought I would be like having like all this time to do things that I was really excited about doing, like working on my hand lettering. Like, I like my penmanship, and I wanted to like do like really beautiful hand lettering, and I haven't cracked open a book. Like, and it's all day long. Like, and part of it is that like sense of, I think before, when I knew, okay, you're going to be on job site all day tomorrow, so you need to get this stuff down. Now it's like, well, where am I going? Like, right. So like the things get dragged out, like things that shouldn't take an hour are taking like 5 hours to get done. So I'm being very productive in a very slow-mo version.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are experiencing the same thing, especially with all this time that we have. And it's not like, okay, at 3:00, I have an appointment to go to today. I need to get this done before 3:00. It's, well, I have all day to do it because there's nowhere to go.
Exactly.
So,
and also with daylight savings, which is literally my favorite thing in the world, it's like your day doesn't end when it gets dark, because it's now getting dark at like 7:30. So you're like chugging along, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, and then like, I recently discovered I have a kitchen, a very nice kitchen. And so I've been cooking, and like that takes a long time, prepping and cleaning. And then like, just, I feel like I am going to be one of those people that thought I had all this time and I just squandered it somehow.
yeah, you won't be the only one. I can tell you that. Definitely won't. What about when this quarantine is over and we're allowed to go out, go wherever we want, whether it's a restaurant, a show, or anything like that? What is the first thing you're doing after the quarantine's done?
As I bend my head, I think I'm going to have a haircut, a hair color, some manicure, and a pedicure is probably the first thing. But you know what? The first thing I want to actually invest in, and this is what I'm going to bring in the organic upholstery cleaner. I've been on my sofa more than I've ever been on my sofa, and I want to have it do a nice deep clean for it, like really. And I know it's a weird thing to get excited about, but I'm like, no, I'm going to have someone come in and clean my sofa because my sofa has gotten a lot of action in the past 2 months.
I bet. What about anything that you're working on that you have coming up that you think more people should know about?
Oh my God, it's my communal closet clean out. Like that is what's like the top of mind right now. I am doing a closet workshop and it is a workshop. Like you will do the actual work of organizing your closet, editing. It's a 2-day event. We're meeting on Friday, May 8th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm going to like teach the ease method of organization. And this is literally the same approach that me and the entire Apartment Genie team do when we go to a client's home. And I'm going to not just like teach the things, I'm then giving you the time on the workshop to go and do those things. So you're getting the accountability of go and do this. We're meeting back at this time and then discussing it, teaching the next part. I also have a guest from The Real Real who's going to teach us how to monetize, what to look for, because the truth is Louboutin sold really well pre-March 15th. Now they're not selling well. Things that are selling well are things that are doing, that you see in a neck above. And, so having people have that kind of sense of, do I want to hold on to this? Or maybe I could get some money for this and let it go. And so it's a really fun workshop. People have likened it to like a girls' party, but like motivated. Like one person was so motivated, not only did she clean out 4 closets, she then started to paint her apartment. Like she just got like, so it was inspirational, motivational. So it's, and it is a paid class. I will be honest. Like a lot of people right now are giving free webinars and stuff like this. Is not the reason that I'm asking people to pay, and it's a low fee. I mean, it's $97. I mean, truth be told, $97 for 4 hours of my time is unheard of. But the great thing about it is that if you've invested in it, you're making a commitment to do this. And I'm giving you time and the space to actually get it done, and the expertise and the sense of community and the accountability and, the tools in which to do it. And those tools are good for any area of your life, not just the closet. So that's happening this Friday on May 8th. And then again, we reconvene at 11 a.m. on May 9th. It makes for a great Mother's Day gift too, because like you don't have to leave the house to give it to somebody. But
or you can have like a mother and daughter cleaning their closets together.
Yeah, I love that. They could be on the call together and coming back in. And, it's really been, I wasn't sure how I would be able to like do this type of thing. Like, would people really get value? And I was so shocked at like the feedback I received, at how great it was, how much they enjoyed it, how like they really meet you. I mean, and people started showing me what their closets look like. That's the other thing. Like I am asking everyone that goes on the call, and it's limited capacity because of so much personalized attention. I can't do it for a big group like this. Because I ask you to send photos of your closets, and then on day 2, I go visually tell you where we can maximize space, how you can maybe like put things in a more efficient manner, because the goal is to be able to get into your closet, get dressed, know that everything fits you, you look good in everything, you feel good in everything, and not have all that like, I have nothing to wear, because you know that everything you have in the closet is something you want to wear. So I'm really excited about the workshop. I think it's probably going to be the last time I do a workshop for a bit, because once people are allowed outside, with the exception of me, nobody wants to be in a closet cleaning. So that's this week, and that's like the big project I'm like working on right now.
Gotcha. And so on the May 8th and 9th, was it?
Yeah.
Right? So May 8th and 9th, you're going to help a lot of people live better organized, right?
That is exactly what I want to do. And then, you can go and have it on social media. The tickets are being sold through Eventbrite. But yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be fun. You should join me. I mean, I know that your wardrobe is probably very pared down, but
just a lot of black, a lot of blue, a lot of very neutral colors.
Because you know what works for you.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Jeanie, final question. You ready?
I am.
Finish this sentence.
Oh boy.
Jeanie Engelbach is?
The chaos conqueror.
There we go, the chaos conqueror. All right, Jeanie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
God, thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun and also really motivating because right after I get off this call, I am going to start finishing up my Apartment Genie website and stuff and get that off my plate. And it's been a wonderful experience. And I thank you for thinking of having me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. I'm excited for your workshop. Good luck and stay safe.
You too.